You're still watching the morning show here on the Arise News channel. In what can be described as a huge swipe at members of Nigeria's legislature, President Muhammadu Buhari on Tuesday said that there was nothing to show for the over 1 trillion naira spent on constituency projects over the last 10 years. According to Buhari, data obtained from Nigerians in rural communities across the country indicated that there was no impact of such projects by members of the National Assembly on the lives of the people. He noted that 1 trillion naira has been appropriated in the last 10 years for constituency projects, but the impact can hardly be seen. To discuss this and more, Senator Enyinnaya Abaribe joins us now from our Arise Abuja Studio. Senator Abaribe, good morning. Welcome to the morning show. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning, Ruben.
Good morning. Good to see you. Well, for the benefit of our viewers, I would like you to help us explain what Nigerians mean or what lawmakers mean when they talk about constituency projects. And how does this work out in reality? Is it that, lawmakers just collect money and put in their pockets, or they are supposed to monitor these constituency projects? And why constituency projects? When we have governors, we have the federal government, we have local government chairmen, why should lawmakers also get involved in projects?
Well, I guess let's take it from the historical perspective, and that is that most parts of Nigeria and a lot of the different constituencies of Nigeria were not getting the federal presence, let's just say that, in their various areas. And to plug this gap was why the legislators who were representing different constituencies were now given the opportunity to locate certain projects within those constituencies that lack. And it was basically during the time of the Millennium Development Goals era, and right now the SDGs also. And what now, the way it works is that there is a list of projects which are designated for that. And then what the lawmaker does is that he locates the particular, the particular village or town or school or whatever that they would like such a project to be done. When you do that, it now goes back to the agency or the ministry that is doing it. And within the ministry or the agency, they will award the contracts, they will choose whoever is the person that will, or the company that will do the project. What the lawmaker does is to ensure that this is located in that particular place like they have done, and also to monitor through their oversight of that particular one what happens. Now, there has been this erroneous impression given that lawmakers are given funds and that they now decide who does it and all that. That's very far from the truth. The lawmaker has nothing to do with the process of going through both the allocation of funds and the release of funds and the project implementation. So we are simply there as the bridge between the people and the federal government with regard to that particular project. And it's erroneous also for somebody to say, oh, nothing, you can't find anything. That's not just true. There are too many constituencies, too many, I would say, people in this, our country, who will never have ever seen anything called government intervention that, if not for this constituency project, would never have done so. Now, also saying that because you have a state government, the state government doesn't also cover everywhere. Saying that you have local government doesn't also cover everywhere. In fact, I think one of the difficulties that we have today is how the local government funds are not even reaching the elected people in the local governments or the appointed people for them to use it for their people. And there's an ongoing conversation which this government is also trying to tackle by insisting that monies go direct. So when you combine all this, you will find that the lawmaker is just getting the short end of the stick for, reasons that are best known to those who make all these allegations.
Thank you, sir. The initial report in June by the Constituency Project Tracking Group was that more than 2 trillion naira had pretty much gone down the drain. By the time the president made his statement, it was 1 trillion naira. So I don't think the intent is to say that nothing was done whatsoever, because rebuttals from members of the National Assembly are seeming to take on quite a defensive tone, perhaps understandably, because what is being alleged is quite grave. But can you tell us how much tends to pass through the hands of individual senators or members of House of Representatives? You've said just now quite clearly that it's actually MDAs under the executive that executes these projects. But what passes through the individual's hands? That point needs to be clarified, because this same constituency tracking group revealed in August that the senator for Enugu North was found with 117 million naira worth of items, 230 motorcycles, tricycles, there were grinding machines, and he had put them in a compound, and they had to compel him, this group which operates under ICPC, to actually distribute the items. So what passes through the individual's hands?
So when you say what passes through the individuals, and you still fall into the same trap that I'm saying, that you're making an erroneous assumption. Nothing passes through the individual senator's hands. And this is how the process is. The reference that you made to, I'm sorry?
The senator from Enugu North had 117 million naira worth of items. Because I, like you, was always under the impression that constituency projects are exactly as you have described, that is the process, that nothing passes through the senator's hands. However, that case showed a different picture. So to what extent does the senator or the member of the House of Reps have access to certain items?
So let me say this. You are trying to get, let's say, the motorcycles or keke napep or generators or grinders and all that. You're bringing it to the particular constituency. It's got to be stored somewhere. And then the senator says, store it in this particular warehouse, so that when it now comes for me to distribute it, then we'll bring everybody together and then it is distributed. And somebody now turns around, goes and starts to shout and say, oh, they found something in him. That's not true. It's just an allegation. And let me also say this. Maybe I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but it looks to me like there is something else that is playing out here. Some people want to take credit for nothing, actually. And so we now have seen that people from ICPC have been going around trying to blackmail senators, trying to say, oh, that they found this or that. And we're saying this is a project A done by Ministry A. Now, if you have an issue with that, you now go to the ministry and say, give us all the stats of all these particular projects. And then you go to the constituency and find out whether this was actually done or not. And then you can now find out who are the recipients of this. Was this done? If it is a school you repair, you can go check whether it was actually repaired. If it is a motorcycle given out or something, you can check whether it was actually given out. So these things are easily verifiable. Now, staying back in your office and then just making a blanket accusation against the National Assembly, I think that maybe some people are looking for something else. Actually, they are not trying to verify whether constituency projects were done or not. And to go back to your original question, when you now said, how is it gone? In the national budget, we had always had for the constituency projects, an amount and a sum of money that comes to 10 billion per zone. There are 6 zones in this country. So when the money comes, then each state also gets an equal share within what comes to the zone. And then each constituency between the House of Rep and the Senate, also there's an allocation according to that. So that I, as a senator, you can now tell me, okay, you can make a projection for where you should put something in the neighborhood of 200 million or something like that. And I can now say to myself, okay, looking at the template that is given to me, I'm actually going to do 10 motorcycles, 20 generators, and all that to get to that fund. When we now get it, we simply send it back to the office of the MDG or the SDG, as the case may be, and they go ahead and do it according to the particular ministry. We now no longer are part of whatever else process that goes on there. And it's amazing for us that you are the executive. You are the people that also do these projects. And yet, instead of now asking yourself that are doing the projects, how are these projects being done? And doing the normal auditing process or whatever else, or a special investigation, then you turn around and simply just look at a senator and say, oh, he collected a constituency, this and walked away. And that's why I say that there has been an erroneous impression that senators or House of Rep members are given funds. We are not.
Okay,
we are
Senator.
simply told, these are the projects you can do, and then this is how you can do it.
Okay, Senator, we are going to go on a very quick commercial break, but when we're back, I will bring you up more on this matter of federal presence in states and what exactly counts as federal presence, etc. But do stay with us, and we'll go into more detail on that right after the break. Still have Senator Enyinnaya Abaribe with us in our Abuja studios, looking into the statement that came out via President Muhammadu Buhari. The 1 trillion naira has been spent on constituency projects with nothing to show for it. Now, Senator, thank you for staying with us. At the start of the conversation, you mentioned that the constituency projects idea was built around the MDGs and now the SDGs. A United Nations report on hand pump intervention in Nigeria came out recently, showing that only 56% of hand pumps are functioning at any given time. So you're looking at constituency projects and you're like, okay, even if the money goes out for these projects and these projects can be accounted for, are these projects even sustainable? So are they really in line with the SDGs? And then what exactly counts as the federal presence that needs to come with constituency projects? Because we see things going out like kekena peps, bikes, grinding machines, etc. So where are we drawing the line here? Is money actually really being accounted for? And are these projects sustainable?
Well, every project that you put on ground is sustainable. And I will take you back to what you were just saying concerning the way that our budget process is done. Now, if the government budgets 100 naira, then at the end of the day, there's a release of 30 naira. That's 30%, and which is what we have seen all over the place. And so, if you're doing a project in which you probably have to do a building, and then you have to do a skill acquisition, and then the money is just enough for the building, there is nobody to bring in the equipment for the skill acquisition, then, of course, you have an empty building, you have nothing inside. That is the type of things that we see. And so when you now ask the question, what exactly is federal presence, I can also throw it back to ask, at the point at which we were doing 10,000 per person, saying that, okay, these people are the most vulnerable people, you just use it for them to do their trade and do any other thing, is that actually sustainable too? So you can ask all these questions, but the point remains is that So many communities have benefited from this. And those communities will never, ever have been remembered in any way at all by the governments if there was not this intervention. The intervention is very well intentioned. And if there's lapses here and there, that does not mean that intervention is not good. And so we should take that actually as the fact. I know in my constituency, there's a place just between Abia State and Akwa Ibom, Abal and Kamini. Nobody has been there. We did a town hall for them so that they could have even where to meet. And when we went there, they were telling us that this is the first time since 1945 that any government had come there to do anything for them. So these stories abound all over. So we really don't see why there is this accusation against that, oh, maybe we're duplicating things. We're not. We're actually intervening in those areas that have been overlooked by the various governments, be they the local government or the state government.
Well, Senator,
and the federal government, as the case may be.
Yes, Senator, I mean, I would like you to comment a little bit more on the quality and nature of these interventions that you keep referring to. For the most part, when we have constituency projects, what we see is a lawmaker either distributing motorcycles or tricycles or what you call the keke napep, or giving out grinding machines, or giving out clothes. And then, of course, in your own case, you said in a community, a town hall was provided. All of this, to an outsider, will look like sheer tokenism. And then, of course, how does the distribution of a grinding machine and, keke napep, how does that translate into ensuring federal presence in a community? I mean, if I was not a Nigerian, I would just laugh and say, I mean, is that really development, sustainable development?
Well, let us put it this way. How do you affect people's lives? The essence of government is welfare of its citizens. And so you have a citizen doing absolutely nothing, and you give him something to do. That is a contribution to society. And so when you deride it, that's where we now find a big problem with that. So what would you call federal presence? Whether it's federal, state, local government, the essential thing is that you got to put a few people to work. And so you have this woman, and she's doing nothing in her home, and she wants something so that she could do, and then it's a grinding machine so that she can be in the market and then start to earn income. You can move up from there. And so then you look at it, and then, I mean, we don't see that as looking down on what is going on and saying, and it's not just that is done. There are several other things. People are doing, I have done educational materials. I have done a cottage hospital. I have also done, even some people have put all their funding into doing a rural road and all that. So there are things that are being done all over the spectrum of making life easier for Nigerians. And what you need to do is actually to make an assessment of which one affects the lives of the people that you're doing it for.
Thank you, Senator. I want to just change the topic a little bit. It was observed with dismay in some quarters that this bill passed second reading, the Protection Against Internet Falsehood Bill. Now, PDP, yourself in particular, you've been emphatic about the fact that you will protect the freedom of expression of Nigerians. So how was this bill able to pass second reading? And obviously it leaves people worried that the other more serious bill might pass second reading and eventually become law, the one establishing the National Commission Against Hate Speech, which includes a death penalty. What is PDP's strategy? Because at last count, with the swearing-in of Senator Biodun Olujimi, I believe it's APC at 63 seats, PDP at 45, and YPP with 1 seat, because you don't have the majority in the Senate.
Well, when you say that, then you are making an assumption that every senator in APC is for the bill, and every senator in PDP is not for the bill. That's not true. You know, within the whole milieu, all of us that are senators, there are some that may be for it, there are some that may be against it. The process of passing a bill is, first is a first reading. That is automatic. Second is the general principles of the bill, which is where we debate. And then after that, there's just a voice vote to either send it to the committee that will now work on it. Now, that committee is the Committee on Justice, and it's headed by Okwemi Bamidele. And it is that committee that will now look at the different aspects. It's that committee that will now call for a public hearing. When the public hearing comes, then all stakeholders will come, including you, to come to make your views known. Then a collation of all those views is what will come back to the Senate for the third reading. And the views, a collation of those views can be that this bill is not necessary, and then it dies there. So the fact that a voice vote said take it to that committee does not mean that the bill has passed. What I can assure you is that all lovers of democracy, including the Senate, that had looked at this bill before and thrown it away, because it happened in the 8th Senate, will still have an opportunity to come and look at it. And actually, I had occasion in another interview to ask Nigerians that your rights are likely to be interfered with, and it is your duty. It is your duty to tell your senator, it is your duty to tell your members of House of Rep, it is your duty as any advocacy group to come and make your presentation against this bill if you so desire. It's also your right to come and say, we want this bill, if you so desire. Now, it is because we detach ourselves from what happens, and then we just let the members inside there to make a decision on their behalf. Sometimes, if the ayes are louder than the nays, of course, something will pass. But when it gets to third reading, at that time, you're now going to go line by line, and the debate will continue, and then you may not be able to get exactly what you want, if that is what people are worried about. I've had a lot of people call me and say, oh, what happened? How did you people let it pass? Well, we didn't let it pass. Some members spoke against it, Chimoro Kenamani and too many others spoke against it and said, this is unnecessary. We already have a cyber crimes bill, we have other bills, we have other things. But if the majority says, okay, let it go for more scrutiny using the Committee on Justice, then it is up to that committee to also, in bringing back his report, tell us these are the views of Nigerians with regard to that. And I think that there's still a lot of opportunities for anybody who wants to make a case for or against to do so.
I just wanted to say that I think it's very cheering what you've just said, that each senator votes according to their conscience and not necessarily along party lines. That's important to note.
Absolutely. And Senator, just before we round up the discussion, let me just bring you back to a point I made in my question to you with regards to the 56% of hand pumps not working on intervention. I wanted to ask you if you're saying that we can count on the fact that constituency projects are sustainable when there is direct proof that a lot of these projects are not sustainable. And then is that necessarily welfare?
Well, sustainable or not, it depends on the particular project. Some projects are sustainable, some are not. Some people have changed their lives with this project, some have not. Just like the projects done by the federal or state governments for whatever reasons that they do it. So all projects fall into the same, I would say, milieu that you will have to view whether this is proper or not proper.
Well, thank you very much, Senator.
Just have to, if you take each project, by itself. Of course, thank you, Ruben.
Thank you very much, Senator Abaribe.
Thank you, Senator.
Yes, thank you.